Okay, so I've got these three basic floor plans drawn, and I've set up 3 pages to show those 3 floor plans, or 3 layouts in AutoCAD. And now I want to add my other annotations, starting with the text. So I've also gone and made some layers. I'm just going to open up layer properties, and you'll see that I've got a layer called Annotative, another one called Annotative, but maybe I'll make another one. So I'll usually have another layer for all of the other annotation, or mostly for the text. So I'll just call this Anno for annotation. And notice I've left them all white, which is black as well in AutoCAD. Ebony and ivory are the same thing, essentially, in AutoCAD, which is handy because, of course, you can't print black, and sorry, you can't print white, I mean, and so if you make anything white in AutoCAD, of course, that prints black. But if you have a black background, as we do on the Model tab, of course, those lines show white. So I've made that layer again, in case you missed it, Anno, and at the moment Annotative's current, so I'll just make Anno the current layer, close this, and then I'm going to do the first thing you should always do when you go to make text, which is to make a text style. So your best friend when you're working with annotation should be this annotation panel here, not the Annotate tab. If you go to the Annotate tab, you can do most of the things that you need for annotation. There's lots of different tools here, but it's actually much easier if you use this annotation panel on the Home tab. So clicking on that arrow there next to where it says annotation, and you get this little drop down, and it's got a style panel for each of your different types of annotation, starting with text. So it says dim, that's the name of the text style that I made last, but I'm going to click on the button next to that, and that'll let me make a new text style. So again, clicking on that button to start with, to bring up text styles, and without changing anything, I'm just going to click the new button, and we'll call this, just trying to think of a different name, Note. And then I'm going to choose my font. So fonts are interesting with design. It's actually a really important consideration, and if you talk to a graphic designer, they'll be able to talk to you for days about fonts and typography and typesetting and all of those things that they focus on. And in the other fields of design, it's pretty important as well. So take your time thinking about the font that you want. But maybe I'll point out some of the more commonly used ones. Ariel is sometimes thought of as a poor man's Helvetica. It's not a bad font, but it's probably not the best for design. Helvetica, unfortunately, isn't available on Windows usually. You can get it, of course, but you need to usually pay money for it. And it's one of the things that makes Apple computers sometimes a good idea because they have Helvetica built in, but again, we don't have that here. So another option is Switzerland Condensed, which here is Swiss 721, which is another font that's similar to Helvetica. So I'll just choose Swiss 721 CNBT, which is condensed. It's a condensed font. So you can see there it's a little bit narrow, but that means I can fit more in. And then I'm going to set a height. So I'll make that 2.5. And then the most important thing is I'm going to tick Annotative. Okay, so those 3 things really: the font, the height, and that annotative option. And then I'll click Set Current, and it'll ask me if I want to save the changes. I'm just going to say yes. And then close. And to make sure it's working, I'm going to draw some text, and I'm just going to change this scale option back to what'll probably, what you'll have to start with, which is 1:1. And just show you what happens if I go to draw some text using multi-line text. So when you click on the down arrow under text, you've got the two choices. And again, I'm going to start with multi-line text. And you can see then it's going to give me a message or warning letting me know that my scale is 1:1. And you normally wouldn't want your text to be 1:1. Okay, so if you see that option, it gives you a chance to choose a different scale, and I can change it there to 1:50. And then click OK. And then I'll just click 2 points to make a rectangle. This one, actually, I'll just check where that goes. Yeah, it is above, so normally the note would be inside that cupboard, but I'll do it the same way it's shown on the drawing here. So again, I'm just going to click up here, start my rectangle, and then click second point, and then type away. So when you see a text box like that, don't worry, just type. The first time it sometimes misbehaves, but I'm going to just type in what I want, like cupboard, and then to finish it, you can either close the text editor or just click to one side. Okay, so you can see then that my text is tiny. So that's again quite common with AutoCAD. It's to do with the scale. So I'm going to repeat that and just show you why that's happened. So again, I'll click 2 points to make my rectangle, and then you can see up here it's got annotative, it's got note, so actually 2.5, and so I'll just type in again. Yep, that's better. Okay, so now you can see it's much larger, and the text box is the size that I made it. So I'm just going to click to one side again, and you can see it's worked this time. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that because it's a common error with AutoCAD. The first time, it sometimes doesn't pick up the scale properly, but just repeat it, and it should work from then on. So I'm going to delete that little piece of text, and now I can just keep repeating using multi-line text, and it will work just fine. So, so don't be put off by that. It's really common with AutoCAD for it to do that just the first time. So again, if I go to multi-line text again now, click 2 points to make a rectangle, and what's this, fridge? Normally it'd be RF, but let's type fridge, that's fine. And there we are, so that's working fine. To edit it, you can just double click, and then of course type in whatever you like. You've got the same options as say a program like Word or any other program that can create text up on the ribbon there. Change the justification to right or to centre. So you'll be doing all of your text at 1:50. I'm just going to show you if I change the scale though, just to give you a better idea why all of that setup's so important. I'll just change the scale to 1:100, and I'll draw multi-line text again. And I'll just make it in here. Okay, so notice how it's much bigger. It's actually exactly double the size of the other text. So if I look at that in properties now, I'm just going to select that text, right-click and go to properties. Then you can see that the height is still 2.5, just like the other text. So I'll select one of these others, and you can see again the height there is 2.5. But the larger text there also has a scale of 1:100. This one's got a scale of 1:50. So now I'm going to switch over to one of the pages, and then you can see it's only showing the text that's set for that scale. So this viewport, if you remember, that was set to 1:50. And to check, if you're not sure, you can either click onto the edge, and then you'll see the scale down on the status bar there, or if you double click to make the viewport active, it'll show you as well. Okay, so this viewport again we know is 1 to 50, and notice how it shows only that text and the 1 to 100 text isn't showing. Okay, so that's why setting the scale is so important. It sets the size, but also it makes the text show in the appropriate size or appropriate scale viewport. And again, you're lucky with this project. Most of your drawings, in fact, I think all of them are 1 to 50. So I can then just continue making text and essentially just copy what you can see on these drawings here. It doesn't need to be exactly the same size, or you can probably vary it a little bit in other ways as well. But essentially you should have all of those basic notes there that you can see on each of these drawings. And one final thing, if you're working on a layout, you can draw the text there as well. So at the moment, remember, I'm in model space, and if you're not sure, you can always tell by looking down on the status bar there, you can see it says model. So do you remember how to go back to paper space? Yeah, that's right, exactly. Click on that button, that's a good way. You can see now that says paper, so we know we're in paper space. I'll show you a couple of shortcuts though as well. So I'll click on that button again to go back to model, and now I'll double click outside the viewport in that white part of the page, and that'll also take me to paper. So then I'll draw some text here, and this can be useful, say, for things like legends and other things that might go outside the viewport. So again, I'll just use multi-line text, and I'll click, again, a couple of points to make a rectangle. And again, we'll say it's a legend, and put in some generic things. Okay, so I'll click again just outside that rectangle to finish the text, and then you can see this text is exactly the same height as the text over here. But if we look at it, or if we look at the properties, I'll just again select it and then right click to go to properties. You can see over here the scale is actually 1 to 1 because we're working on the page. But again, AutoCAD knows it's 2.5 mil, so that's the size it should print, and that means it'll be the same size as this text here, even though that's drawn at 1 to 50. Okay, so as long as you set that up and try to work with that annotative option, so just going back to the text style again, it's all because of that annotative option. If you don't tick that, then you have to set the height in a completely different way, and a bit more maths involved. So yeah, get into the habit of using that. Should make it fairly easy, as long as you follow all those steps. I'll give you a bit of time maybe just to do some text if you haven't done that, or you can do whatever you need to finish off, and then I'll do dimensions next.